Welcome, everybody. I'm going to be working here today on the assignment in Module 2 called the Budget Calculator. I'm going to kind of do this pretty quickly, but I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of what we're trying to do. Basically, we're going to be working with functions and if statements here. So it's fairly straight ahead in terms of conception. We have the call to create a couple of functions here. One is called get cost, and it takes one parameter. We will send basically text to it, which will tell us the type of cost we're calculating. We'll ask the user if they pay for this cost, and if they do, we'll ask for the amount of it, and then we'll return that cost or zero. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a function called print report, which is going to accept two parameters, the monthly income and the monthly cost. It's going to output that. So it's going to return that to the screen, not to the program body. So this is the thing that's going to handle all the output or most of the output to the screen. And it will also determine if we are running a surplus, if there's a deficit, or if we're breaking even with the corresponding message. And no return value is needed because it's just pushing stuff to the screen. The other aspect here is that we will get the following information from the user. So we're going to be getting the pay periods per month and the amount of pay per pay period from the user. They're going to type that in, and then we're going to ask them to basically, input some of the information that you see here, and then we're going to run the report function, and then we have some sample screens as to what it will look like. All right, so I think we have a pretty clear description of where we're going with this. So what we're going to do next is we're going to jump over to Visual Studio Code and start putting this code together. First step is to kind of build the function. So let's build the first one. And I'm going to kind of do this in a copy paste fashion to kind of accelerate workflow here. So we're going to first define a function called get cost. We're going to pass into it a cost name. We will prompt our user first if they pay for this cost with a yes or no. And I want you to notice this is kind of an interesting approach. We're putting the if statement with the input or the prompt right inside the if, which will generate a value of y or n, ideally, and then we'll compare it to y, and if it's y, we'll move forward. I'm not going to worry about like pushing it to lowercase or uppercase, but normally that would be good programming practice here. If they type yes, then what they will do is we'll return basically the result of prompting them how much that costs. So for example, if we send to it rent, then we're going to say, do you pay for rent? And they type yes, then we'll ask them how much it is, convert it to a float, and directly return it. So the prompt, the numeric conversion are directly in the return statement. We're going to follow that then with outside of the if statement, the return of zero, because if they say no to this question, do you pay for the cost, then we're not going to worry about it. Somebody else is paying for it, obviously. The next function is the print report function, which is going to handle most of the output to the screen and the determination of whether they're running a surplus, a deficit, or breaking even. We're going to pass into it the monthly income and the monthly costs. And we'll begin by simply reiterating those two pieces of information to the screen. So those are things they're sending in. And we are just going to simply put them back up on the screen. Notice that I have new line characters in here, string interpolation, formatted to financial formatting, right? Then we run our if statement. So the first part of the if statement is we're going to check and see if their costs or their income is greater than their costs. And we hope that to be the case, right? Because otherwise you're running in the red. And if they are earning more than they're spending, then we can show them by a calculation what that surplus is specifically. If they're not doing that, and maybe their costs are greater than their income, so we're doing an else if here, then we will output what their deficit is. Once again, doing the math, we're just flipping the variables around to get the difference, so to speak. And then we'll have an else situation, and the else will cover the environment in which they are breaking even. So we just put back a little simple message like this. So now let's go to the main program body, because we got to call these functions to let them run. And first, we're going to put the header up on the screen because the example shows that there's a header and we're putting in a new line character. Then we're going to prompt the user for the number of pay periods. We're going to ask them how many times per month they're paid, and we're going to directly convert that to an integer and store it in this variable. Then we're going to ask them how much they get paid with each check. So how much is each paycheck? That'll get stored in another variable. Then we will create a variable called monthly costs that will store the output of getting the cost for rent, getting the cost for a car, and getting the cost for groceries. If they pay for those things, we'll get that value back from this function and add it to the others to determine the total monthly cost, because they may or may not pay for it. So like if you live at home and you don't pay for rent, you don't pay for a car, and you don't pay for food, lucky you. You should bank your income then. But otherwise, that will help us to make the final output that we will send to the report. So the report will basically, we're going to call that function, which is going to handle taking the pay amount times the pay period. And yeah, I'm doing the math right here in place. I could do this separately and store it, but there's nothing that says I can't do the calculation here. So that will end up here in this function. And then I'm taking the monthly cost, which we calculated here, and sending it in as well. Now it might dawn on you that, hey, if we're doing math here, could I take all these function calls and the return values and just drop that highlighted statement in this spot? And you know what? The answer is yes, you could do it that way. Right. This is the entirety of the program. So this is the solution. I'm going to hit the save button here, and then I'm going to run the program at least a time or two. And so as you screen capture this, I'm just have you have in the back of your head, run it with no costs or some costs or variable costs just to kind of capture it. But I'm going to answer the question. So how many times are you paid per month? I'll say twice. How much is each paycheck? Let's say it's $1,500. And what do you pay, or do you pay for rent? And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say how much is the rent per month, right? And so this prompt only appears if the answer yes to the first question, right? And so here, let's just say it's $1,000 a month, right? Then do you pay for a car? Once again, I will say yes. How much is the car payment? Let's just say it's $300. And do you pay for your groceries? I'll say yes once again. And how much are the groceries per month? Oh, I don't know, maybe 350. All right. And it says monthly income is 3,000, costs are 1,650. You're running a surplus of 1,350. Well, this is kind of simplistic, granted, but if you wanted, you could easily add costs for other items like cell phone and insurance and internet and gaming fees or whatever, subscriptions you have for whatever. And then a wise person would take the extra money and ideally put it in savings. I know a lot of us don't do that, but folks, this is the solution for the budget calculator. There's the code. Here is the output. And I'd like you to capture both and ideally a few iterations of the output. All right, this video will end here. That is the solution, and hope your code works out. We'll see you in the next session.